Depending on where you live, eminent domain proceedings can vary significantly. But ultimately, most every eminent domain proceeding can be broken down into two phases. The first phase is, can the government lawfully take your property and convert that to a public purpose? And two, how much does the government need to pay you for that land? When the government decides to take your private property, it can't just immediately file a lawsuit to do so. The government, through its own planning, will decide how much land it needs to take. And the government is required, prior to filing any eminent domain proceedings, to negotiate with the landowner directly. And they're required to sit down with you as a property owner to discuss that appraisal, to discuss the good faith offer that they will present to you. It's at that point that you're entitled to much more information that you can request about the project, the appraisal, the construction maps, and the right-of-way maps, all of which the government is required to give you so that you can make an informed and advised decision as to whether to accept the money from the government. Now, in our experience, the government doesn't always offer true and fair value for what the property is actually worth. In those cases, many landowners and attorneys representing landowners will decline that offer, or no agreement can be made. It's at that point in eminent domain proceedings where the government will file a petition. That lawsuit, again, is broken into two phases. First, the government needs to prove that it has the authority to take your property for a public purpose, and that it's not taking any more of your property than necessary to fulfill that public purpose. Once that phase of the litigation is over, we then move on to the damages or the compensation phase. During that process, you are entitled to a jury panel to decide by jury verdict what the value of your property is worth and how much the government must pay you for that property. After the jury makes its decision, then you are entitled to that award, plus your attorney's fees, plus the cost that you incur in that process. That, in a nutshell, is a general framework for eminent domain proceedings in Florida.